Welcome, dear subscribers and curious listeners of my channel. The Harry Potter series is renowned for how skillfully it escalates in drama from book to book. But it was the Goblet of Fire that marked the turning point, the moment when everything changed. The Triwizard Tournament, blazing dragons, perilous depths, and eerie labyrinths, all of it seemed like a game at first glance. In truth, the stakes had become deadly, and by the end of this installment, Lord Voldemort had returned. Unfortunately, a 2-hour runtime simply isn't enough to convey the full depth of the book. Some plot elements were cut entirely, while others were drastically changed. Today we're going to explore the most important moments from the Goblet of Fire that appeared very differently, or not at all, in the film adaptation. Enjoy the video. Number 1. Dobby and Winky. One of the most glaring omissions from the film is not only Winky, but, perhaps even more surprisingly, Dobby. In the book, both house elves play crucial roles. Winky served the Crouch family and was unintentionally involved in the mystery of Barty Crouch Jr. After being dismissed, she ended up in Hogwarts, where Dobby tried to help her through a deep depression. These characters added rich layers to the theme of freedom and oppression in the wizarding world. Their removal left the story far less nuanced. Number 2. The Society for the Promotion of Elfish Welfare. It was Winky's story that inspired Hermione to create her famously clunky-named organization, SPEW, which her friends mocked fondly. This subplot showed how passionately Hermione fought for justice, even when no one else cared. Unfortunately, since Dobby and Winky were cut from the movie, this storyline never saw the light of day either. Number 3. Neville gave the gillyweed instead of Dobby. Dobby didn't just show up in side plots, he played a pivotal role in the tournament itself. In the book, it was Dobby who brought Harry the gillyweed that allowed him to breathe underwater during the second task. Since he was cut from the film, this duty was handed to Neville. According to the screenplay, Neville had learned about the gillyweed from a book planted by Barty Crouch Jr., disguised as Mad-Eye Moody. Number 4. The first task, the Wild Dragon. The film turned the first task into a near-Hollywood action sequence. The Hungarian horntail breaks free from its chains and chases Harry across the castle grounds, smashing everything in its path. Though thrilling to watch, the book version is much more grounded and logical. The dragon remains within the arena and Harry has to outsmart it to retrieve the golden egg. Number 5. Ludo Bagman. Ludo Bagman, head of the Department of Magical Games and Sports, former Quidditch star, World Cup commentator, and one of the Triwizard organizers, played a notable role in the book. Shady, yet comical, he owed money to goblins and the Weasley twins, and while not tied to Voldemort, he added moral complexity to the narrative. The film completely omitted him, depriving us of one of the more entertaining and ambiguous secondary characters. Number 6. Beauxbaton and Durmstrang. For some reason, the film chose to portray Beauxbaton as a girls-only school and Durmstrang as male-only. Likely done for visual contrast, this depiction strayed far from the books. Both schools were co-educational. In fact, Nicholas Flamel himself is said to have studied at Beauxbaton. While this change may be convenient for film viewers, it disrupts the internal logic of Rowling's magical world. Number 7. Fleur's grandmother, Avila. Why did Ron lose his mind over Fleur? Why did he invite her to the Yule Ball despite having zero chance? In the movie, it comes across as clueless, teenage foolishness. But the book offers a clear explanation. Fleur's grandmother was Avila, a magical being that enchants men. Fleur inherited part of that allure, making Ron a victim of her magical charm rather than just a love-struck teen. Number 8. Rita Skeeter's secret. Rita Skeeter is everywhere in the book, watching, listening, twisting truths into headlines. She knows too much, details no one ever said aloud. How? That's the mystery, and Hermione solves it. She discovers that Skeeter is an unregistered animagus. She turns into a beetle, small, silent, perfect for spying. I found her in the hospital wing, Hermione says. triumph in her voice. She was on the windowsill, listening in. Hermione traps her in a jar, a beetle in glass, helpless and exposed. For once, the Queen of Gossip has no words. Hermione doesn't go to the ministry. She doesn't need to. She holds the truth, and she uses it. "You're going to keep your quill to yourself for a whole year," she tells her. And Rita obeys. That's power, not from a wand, but from wit. It's one of Hermione's best victories. No duel, no spell, just observation and nerve. The film cuts it all. There's no jar, no reveal. Rita disappears from the story without consequence. Her silence in Order of the Phoenix comes from nowhere. Viewers never see how Hermione outsmarted the most vicious voice in the wizarding press. It robs Hermione of a moment that defines her, clever, brave, and quietly ruthless when it matters. In the book, she traps a predator. In the film, the predator just vanishes, and the battle of minds is lost. Number 9, Ron and Hermione's fight at the Yule Ball. At the Yule Ball, the camera shows Ron scowling in the shadows while Hermione dances with Victor Crumb. He's bitter, jealous, but that's all the film gives us, a sulky boy and a distant girl. In the book, the tension snaps. After the ball, Ron lashes out. He accuses Hermione of fraternizing with the enemy. Hermione doesn't hold back. "Next time there's a ball, ask me before someone else does, and not as a last resort," she shouts, her voice shaking. Then she storms off in tears. It's not just a quarrel. It's the first real emotional eruption between them, a crack in their friendship. Hermione isn't just hurt. She's heartbroken. She wanted Ron to see her, to value her, not just as the girl who does his homework or stands beside him in danger, but as someone he wants by his side. Ron's silence had said everything. And when he finally speaks, it's too late and too cruel. Their friendship limps forward, but something's changed. The film smooths over all of it. We see glances, jealousy, discomfort, but no confrontation, no raised voices, no tears. That choice robs the moment of weight. Their relationship becomes background noise instead of emotional fire. But in the book, that fire burns, it hurts, and it marks the moment when their story becomes something more than friendship. Messy, real, and full of unsaid things. Number 10, the Sphinx in the Maze. The maze in the film is dark and eerie. The hedges close in, the wind howls, walls twist and shift like a living thing. But that's all there is. No creatures, no riddles, no tests of skill or mind. In the book, the maze is alive with danger and magic. Blast-ended Scroots, a boggart disguised as a Dementor, a giant spider, and the Sphinx, a mythical creature waiting calmly in the path, her golden eyes fixed on Harry. She doesn't attack. She speaks. "Answer me this and walk on through," she says. "Fail, and I attack." Then she presents her riddle, complex, strange, and deadly serious. Harry listens, thinks. He doesn't draw his wand, he solves it. "A spider," he answers at last. The Sphinx steps aside. It's a rare moment in the series, where intellect matters more than spells. Harry's courage isn't just in his heart, but in his head. He earns his passage with thought. The film cuts this completely. There's no riddle, no Sphinx, just twisting vines and fear. It robs the final task of its depth. In the book, the maze is more than a physical trial. It's mental, magical, legendary. The Sphinx scene reminds us that Harry isn't just brave, he's clever. That matters. The movie forgets it, but the book makes it unforgettable. Number 11. Pensieve Memories. The Pensieve scene in the film is brief. Dumbledore pulls a strand of memory. Harry leans in, and then chaos. Karkaroff names names. The courtroom is loud. It ends before it begins. But in the book, the Pensieve is a door. It opens slowly. It leads into the haunted ruins of a war that never truly ended. Harry doesn't just watch a trial. He watches a life unravel. He sees Bartemius Crouch Jr. dragged into the chamber, shackled, pale and trembling. Crouch Sr., cold and stern, delivers the sentence, life in Azkaban. "You are no son of mine," he says. His son screams, "I'm your son!" His mother weeps silently beside him. It's a brutal scene, not a trial, a public execution of a family. Harry is shaken. He watches a father destroy his child. He sees fear, betrayal, and the kind of punishment that creates monsters. That moment explains everything. Why Crouch Jr. returns with such fury, why he clings to Voldemort, why he hides beneath another man's skin for a full year. The movie removes all of this. There's no context for his madness, no sorrow, no roots. He becomes a villain with a wand, not a shattered boy raised under iron rule. Without the trial, the character is flat. The danger feels smaller. The Pensieve is not just a magical basin, it's the story's memory. It holds truth no one wants to say aloud, the past that Dumbledore keeps locked away. In the book, it's a warning. The choices of one generation will always haunt the next. In the film, it's reduced to noise and shadows, a missed opportunity, a lost confession, a silence where tragedy once lived. Number 12. Prize money and the Weasley twins. The Triwizard Tournament ends in blood. Cedric is dead. Harry is alive but haunted. The Ministry still insists on handing him the 1,000 galleons, a prize for surviving. In the book, Harry can't stand the thought of keeping it. "Take it," he says to Fred and George. "You'll be great at it." He shoves the sack of gold into their hands, quiet and determined. No speeches, no ceremony, just a silent act of kindness that changes everything. Fred and George don't take the gift lightly. They know what it means. It's not just money, it's belief. Someone sees their dream, even if their mother doesn't. Someone thinks their future is worth something. The joke shop, Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, begins in that moment. Long before Diagon Alley, before the skiving snack boxes and extendable ears, there's just a friend helping friends. "We're not going to forget this," Fred says. "Never." The film erases this. The gold disappears. The generosity vanishes. There's no scene, no thank you, no glimpse of the Weasley twins planning anything more than a prank. It's a quiet loss, but a painful one. Without it, Fred and George's later success feels sudden, almost unexplained. The seeds are missing. The growth never starts. More importantly, Harry's gesture shows his heart. He wins a brutal contest and gives away everything, not for glory, not for attention, just to help someone laugh in dark times. That's who he is. The film forgets to show it, but the book remembers, and so do the twins. Number 13, the Wizarding World's reaction to Voldemort's return. Voldemort returns in a blaze of fire and shadow. The graveyard scene in the film is unforgettable, chilling, violent, final. But when Harry escapes with Cedric's body and brings back the warning, the world barely flinches. The movie lets the moment fade. No outrage, no disbelief, no denial. It ends quietly, like a bad dream. But in the book, the real nightmare begins, only after Harry comes back. Cornelius Fudge arrives at Hogwarts. He stares at the dead body. He hears Dumbledore say it. Voldemort has returned. But he refuses to believe it. You know who returned? Preposterous. Fudge doesn't want the panic, the war, the political fallout. So he does what cowards do. He denies the truth. He calls Dumbledore a liar. He accuses Harry of being unstable. The boy is, well, there's a lot of pressure, Dumbledore. I understand. People crack. With those words, he begins a campaign not against Voldemort, but against those warning the world. Dumbledore, once revered, becomes dangerous in the eyes of the Ministry. Harry, already isolated, is pushed further into the margins. The wizarding press, under Fudge's influence, mocks them. The Daily Prophet prints stories discrediting Harry's mental state. The scar, the graveyard, the killing, none of it matters. What matters is control, image, power. And just like that, Voldemort wins his first battle without lifting a wand. He makes the world look away. The film delays this entire storyline. It chooses to end with calm speeches and distant stares. No political collapse, no headlines, no rage. That choice costs the story its momentum. In the book, the return of Voldemort doesn't just resurrect an enemy, it fractures the world, it poisons trust, it sets fire to the foundation of magical society. The silence in the film feels like peace. But in the book, silence is the first sound of war. Number 14, Bartemius Crouch, Sr. disappears without explanation. Bartemius Crouch Sr. walks into the Forbidden Forest, mumbling and wild-eyed, and then he vanishes. That's all the film gives us. No explanation, no resolution. 1 minute he's there, and the next gone like smoke. It's a jarring moment, especially considering who he is, the strict ministry official, the man who once fought Voldemort's forces with brutal precision. The movie treats his disappearance like a passing thought, but in the book, his fate is one of the darkest and most revealing twists in the story. In Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Crouch's downfall is not sudden. It's slow and tragic. He is under the Imperious Curse, controlled by his own son, Barty Crouch Jr., who escaped Azkaban with the help of his dying mother. "My father rescued me. My mother died for me," says Crouch Jr. in the book's final confession. But even under enchantment, the elder Crouch fights back. He begins to break free. He escapes the house, disoriented, muttering warnings to trees, trying to reach Dumbledore. He nearly succeeds. But fate catches him first. Barty Crouch Jr., still disguised as Mad-Eye Moody, finds out that his father has escaped, and he kills him. "I killed my father," he says coldly. "He was a nuisance. He knew too much." The murder isn't just an act of cruelty. It's a cover-up. They hide the body. Crouch Sr. simply vanishes from the world, and the Ministry never learns the truth. His life, his loyalty, his reputation, erased in silence. In the film, none of this happens. It skips the murder, the escape, the emotional wreckage. It skips the weight. This missing thread changes everything. Without it, the mystery of the Triwizard Tournament unravels without tension. In the book, Crouch's strange behavior is a breadcrumb trail, one that leads Harry closer to the truth. In the film, it's just noise. The loss of this storyline isn't just a missing plot, it's a missing heart. Crouch was a man who fought for order so hard that he sacrificed his own son. And then, when that same son destroyed him, no one saw, no one knew. That silence is chilling. The film forgets it. The book makes you feel it. Number 15, The Transformation of Barty Crouch Jr. In Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, the climactic scene inside Dumbledore's office reveals the unmasking of Barty Crouch Jr., who had been impersonating Mad-Eye Moody throughout the school year. In the movie adaptation, this moment is eerie, unsettling. Barty, played by David Tennant, is shackled to a chair, twitching, licking his lips, and staring at Harry with unblinking madness. But this portrayal, though memorable in its strangeness, peels away only the surface. The core of his character, his terrifying devotion, his fractured mind, his religious fervor for Voldemort, is never exposed. The film renders him creepy. The book reveals him as a cautionary figure, a boy consumed by blind loyalty, corrupted beyond recognition, and made grotesque not in his body, but in his soul. When the real Alastor Moody is discovered locked in the bottom compartment of his own magical trunk, the truth begins to unravel. It is Dumbledore, of course, who uncovers Barty's deception. A few drops of Veritas serum, and the transformation begins. In the book, it is a harrowing metamorphosis, not just physical, but psychological. The Polyjuice potion wears off, and the man who emerges is not merely Barty Crouch Jr. in appearance. His entire demeanor shifts. He is no longer pretending. The mask drops, and in its place is a boy who lost himself long ago. What the potion had disguised was not only his face, but the terrifying zeal with which he served his master. This intensity, this obsessive loyalty, never made it to the screen. And its absence dims the understanding of just how dangerously seductive Voldemort's cause can be. In Rowling's text, Barty's confession is chilling, not because of violence or threats, but because of the religious-like ecstasy with which he speaks of Voldemort. He refers to the Dark Lord not as a man, not as a leader, but as something holy, something divine. The Dark Lord has returned. My master has returned, he repeats with feverish delight. His eyes glitter with devotion. He is not afraid. He is exultant. He offers information not with reluctance or bitterness, but with pride. He's not a villain regretting his exposure. He is a prophet proclaiming the return of his God. The moment is not a confession, it is a sermon. This matters because Barty Crouch Jr. was not born a monster. He was born into a household ruled by discipline, order, and silence. His father, Barty Crouch Sr., a cold and severe official at the ministry, prioritized image and control above affection. When his son strayed into the company of Death Eaters, the elder Crouch acted not as a father, but as a judge. He condemned his son to Azkaban, turning his back on him in public and in private. This rejection did not break Barty, it redirected him. And in the darkness of Azkaban, surrounded by the shrieks of the damned and the soul-rotting presence of Dementors, Barty did not find remorse. He found a purpose. That purpose was Voldemort. The book tells us that Barty was rescued from Azkaban by his mother, who used Polyjuice Potion to take his place and die in prison, unnoticed by the ministry. His life from that point was one of imprisonment, deception, and secrecy. Kept under the Imperious Curse by his own father, hidden from the world, Barty was a prisoner once again, this time in his own home. But Voldemort's magic found him, and the moment he was freed from the Imperious Curse, Barty made a choice, not to flee, not to hide, but to serve. His loyalty was not the result of fear, it was the product of worship. This fanatical devotion is what makes his transformation in Dumbledore's office so horrifying, because it is not just a man pretending to be someone else. It is a man who has lost himself in service to something he believes is greater than himself. In the film, Barty's twitching and lip-licking are visual cues for madness, but they lack emotional substance. They are gestures, not revelations. The audience is told that he is a Death Eater, but they are not shown what that means. They are not made to feel the weight of his belief. In the book, Barty is not merely mad, he is religiously mad. He speaks of Voldemort with awe. He recounts his deeds as though they were sacred tasks. He takes pleasure in his success, not because he fooled everyone, but because he fulfilled his role in Voldemort's plan. His voice is described as high-pitched and wild. His eyes gleam with unnatural light. This is not the voice of a sane man. It is the voice of someone who has surrendered himself to a cause so completely that he no longer recognizes the boundaries of morality. Rowling uses Barty as a mirror for Harry. Both are boys shaped by war, by loss, by prophecy. Both are orphans in their own ways, but where Harry chose friendship, Barty chose power. Where Harry questioned authority, Barty submitted to it. This contrast is subtle but important. It shows that the line between hero and villain is not birthright or prophecy, it is choice. And the moment Barty begins to speak under Verite Serum, we are not hearing a monster. We are hearing what Harry might have become had he made different choices. This dimension is absent in the film. The character becomes a caricature, strange, yes, but not tragic. Creepy, yes, but not frightening. Number 16, the real Mad-Eye Moody. In Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, the audience is introduced to one of the most electrifying figures of the entire series, Alastor Moody, also known as Mad-Eye. He enters the story with a bang, paranoid, intimidating, yet strangely magnetic. In the film adaptation, he's presented as a compelling character who quickly becomes a favorite. But there's a twist. The man we follow for most of the school year isn't Moody at all. He's Barty Crouch Jr., a Death Eater using Polyjuice Potion. While the movie plays this deception to great effect, it leaves behind a haunting void. The real Moody, the veteran aura, the legend, the broken man in a magical trunk, is barely acknowledged. The emotional and psychological weight of his imprisonment is stripped. A way, and with it, a powerful layer of meaning. In the book, Moody is not simply a plot device to drive the mystery. He is a symbol of what it means to fight evil for too long. When Dumbledore finally breaks open the magically locked trunk, revealing the true Moody imprisoned at the bottom, Rowling paints a disturbing picture. The real Moody was lying in the bottommost compartment, motionless, his magical eye missing. It's not just the loss of a body part or his wand, it's the loss of his agency, of his dignity, of months stolen from him while someone used his identity to harm students. In the film, this scene is rushed, almost brushed aside. The camera shows a quick image of a disheveled man and then moves on. But the book lingers. It lets us see the cost. This cost matters because Moody isn't just another wizard. He's the man who trained half the Auror office. He is the embodiment of resistance, of unbending vigilance. His magical eye, spinning 360 degrees, is not just a clever gimmick. It symbolizes his trauma. The eye sees too much, never rests, just like Moody himself. And for someone like him to be captured, imprisoned, and impersonated for nearly a year without anyone noticing, that is a terrifying testament to how deep the Death Eater's reach had become. And yet, the film doesn't allow us to sit with this realization. There's no reflection on how a man so paranoid, so prepared, could be overpowered, no exploration of how this affected him. He's rescued and forgotten. In the final chapters of the book, Dumbledore shows a rare moment of emotional weight when discussing what Moody has endured. He doesn't downplay it. He acknowledges the horror. There's even a moment when they move him to the hospital wing, and it's noted that he is shaken, disoriented, and will need time to recover. This subtle acknowledgement carries immense power. It reminds readers that victory comes at a cost, and not everyone walks away whole. By omitting this, the film removes a critical emotional consequence from the story. It chooses spectacle over substance. There's a grim irony in the fact that students, professors, even Dumbledore himself spent months interacting with a Death Eater in disguise, trusting him, following his orders, and yet there's no reckoning. No scenes where the students react to the truth. No moment where they visit the real Moody in the hospital wing, trying to reconcile the man they knew with the stranger lying before them. In the book, this is felt deeply, especially through Harry. He realizes that the man who guided him, taught him, and perhaps even earned a shred of his trust, was never real. And when Harry sees the real Moody, battered and broken, it hits him. Evil doesn't just kill. It infiltrates, it corrupts, it wears your friend's face. The emotional distance the film creates by cutting the real Moody out of the narrative is especially harmful, considering his future importance. By order of the Phoenix, Mad-Eye is supposed to be a known quantity. He's a core member of the Order, a symbol of defiance. But how can that connection exist if the audience never truly met him? The Moody we come to know later isn't introduced at all in Goblet of Fire. What we get instead is a version of him that's been carefully crafted by Barty Crouch Jr., clever, manipulative, and far too polished. He's likable, even charming. But that's the point. The real Moody isn't charming. He's difficult, scarred by war and shaped by paranoia that the wizarding world once mocked and now depends on. Even Rita Skeeter, in her sensationalized articles, refers to Moody as a loose cannon, a relic of a darker time. But that relic has value. His harshness, his abrasiveness are not flaws, they are battle scars. They tell the story of a man who has spent his life fighting monsters and has become part monster himself in the process. The film had an opportunity to show that complexity in the moment he was rescued. Instead, it gave us nothing. No pain, no grief, no closure. Consider how the book sets up the emotional impact of Moody's imprisonment. Before the big reveal, there are subtle inconsistencies in his behavior. He seems too nice, too forgiving. He breaks rules in ways Moody would never condone. And when the truth comes out, it all clicks into place. Rowling wants us to feel betrayed, not just by the plot twist, but by the realization that we, too, fell for the act. The film doesn't cultivate this feeling. It shows us the twist, but doesn't let it breathe. The fake Moody is whisked away, the real one barely speaks, and the viewer is left with action, but no aftermath. Number 17, Witch Weekly and the smear campaign against Hermione. The fourth installment of the Harry Potter series, The Goblet of Fire, introduced a darker, more complex world, where political undercurrents and emotional chaos began to penetrate the safety of Hogwarts. Among its many subplots, one was completely erased in the film adaptation, one that revolved around the poisonous touch of the media and its impact on the mental health of young witches and wizards. At the heart of this omitted narrative stood Hermione Granger and her entanglement with the venomous pen of Rita Skeeter, whose articles in the Daily Prophet and the gossipy Witch Weekly set off a chain of emotional destruction. Rita Skeeter, introduced as a flamboyant journalist with enchanted quills and a thirst for sensation, immediately recognized Hermione's rising status. Hermione had been seen in the company of Victor Crumb, the internationally adored Quidditch star and Durmstrang champion. This fact alone was enough to draw attention. But Skeeter, never satisfied with reporting the truth, twisted the events to suit her agenda. In her version, Hermione wasn't a bright, principled, muggle-born student, but rather a manipulative girl playing with the hearts of two famous young wizards, Victor Crumb and Harry Potter. In one of her most toxic pieces, Skeeter wrote, "Miss Granger, a plain but ambitious girl, seems to have a taste for famous wizards." Harry Potter has been seen in her company at least thrice, and now Victor Crumb, international Quidditch star, has been snared as well. This falsehood wasn't without consequence. The article sparked a storm of jealousy, especially among the girls at Hogwarts, many of whom idolized Crumb and saw Hermione as an undeserving interloper. The tension seeped into the dormitories and hallways. Whispers followed Hermione wherever she went. Some classmates stopped talking to her entirely. The betrayal cut deep. Not only had the press lied, but people were quick to believe it. This social alienation wasn't just background noise, it was a deliberate emotional weapon, and it wounded. But Rita Skeeter didn't stop with public humiliation. As Hermione continued to refuse interviews and called out Skeeter's unethical reporting, the journalist retaliated. More articles followed, each more damaging than the last. Hermione became the subject of ridicule in a series of Witch Weekly features. One particularly cruel piece stated that Hermione was toying with the hearts of two boys who clearly adored her, unaware that she is a schemer beneath a bookish facade. It was scandalous, untrue, and exactly what Rita needed to increase sales. The movie version of The Goblet of Fire ignored this subplot entirely. It painted Hermione as only emotionally tangled in the Triwizard Ball scenario, where Ron's jealousy flared after seeing her with Crumb. It reduced a complicated portrayal of media manipulation and female strength into a fleeting romantic tension. Viewers missed a crucial moment of Hermione's character arc, her battle not with trolls or Death Eaters, but with public shame, isolation, and the burden of being misunderstood on a massive scale. Her quiet strength and resilience, so visible in the book, were erased. In the book, the bullying wasn't just verbal. Hermione began receiving hate mail. Some letters were filled with green ink, others with glittering hexes and dangerous spells. One particular letter contained a jinx that caused her front teeth to elongate horribly, a physical attack made even more painful by Madame Pomfrey's comment that the teeth had never been quite that long before. Hermione, humiliated, chose not to correct them to their original size but let them shrink to what she preferred, reclaiming some agency over her body in a small but symbolic act of resistance. This subplot is essential because it frames Hermione not as an infallible sidekick but as a teenage girl enduring targeted harassment. The media, the public, even her peers turned against her. And yet she didn't crumble, she didn't retreat. She fought back in the only way she knew, by unmasking Rita Skeeter's true nature. While Skeeter thrived on secrets and deception, Hermione uncovered her animagus form, illegally unregistered, and used it to blackmail the journalist into silence. Hermione said nothing to the Daily Prophet. She didn't seek revenge, she simply stopped the attacks. It was a clean, strategic, and thoroughly Hermione-style victory. The omission of this plotline from the film robbed the audience of a portrait of teen resilience. The real horror Hermione faced in The Goblet of Fire wasn't dragons or mermaids, it was public defamation, body shaming, and social exclusion. These are modern problems familiar to many readers and viewers alike, and Rowling handled them with a subtle touch that resonates even today. In a world where young girls are often pitted against one another and judged for who they associate with, Hermione's calm strength provided a necessary counter-image. The subplot also added another layer to Skeeter's character. She wasn't just a gossip columnist, she was a predator, feeding on vulnerable teenagers for personal gain. She exploited not only Hermione but also Hagrid, whose half-giant identity she revealed, causing him to retreat into hiding. And she did it with Fleur, always under the guise of just doing her job. Without this context, the movie's portrayal of Skeeter as a cartoonish nuisance undermined the real threat she posed. In the book, she wasn't funny, she was terrifying because she reflected real-world journalism gone wrong. In sidelining this storyline, the film also missed the opportunity to explore how the wizarding world consumed media. The readers of Witch Weekly believed Skeeter not because they were evil, but because they were conditioned to crave gossip, scandal, and emotional thrills. It painted a disturbing parallel to our world, where media often shapes public opinion regardless of truth. In the book, Dumbledore doesn't forbid reading Witch Weekly, he trusts his students to think critically, but it becomes clear that not everyone is ready for that responsibility. Ron's reaction to the rumors added even more emotional complexity. While he didn't directly accuse Hermione, his behavior, moody, distant, even cold, suggested he had read the articles and believed them, at least in part. This created a silent rift between them, one Hermione felt deeply. She had expected better from him. This emotional nuance, this feeling of betrayal layered over public humiliation, made her pain even sharper. In the film, their tension is reduced to petty jealousy, but in the book it's much more. It's about trust, or the lack of it. Hermione's decision to act instead of wallow made her arc a rare portrayal of personal agency. She didn't go to Dumbledore for help. She didn't ask Harry or Ron to defend her. Instead, she took matters into her own hands, followed Skeeter, investigated her secrets, and set a trap. In a single moment of brilliance, she captured the beetle-shaped animagus in a jar and declared, "We don't need to make a scene, we just need to keep her quiet." It wasn't just about stopping the lies, it was about protecting others from becoming her next target. This courage to fight back without descending into cruelty distinguished Hermione from many characters in young adult fiction. She didn't resort to revenge, she didn't start a counter-rumor, she simply used truth as her weapon, and in doing so she exposed the fragility of a system built on false narratives. The magical world, for all its spells and enchantments, couldn't shield its children from slander or pain. Only their character could. The emotional cost of Rita's campaign lingered beyond the climax. Hermione never forgot what it felt like to be so publicly hated. It shaped her empathy, sharpened her sense of justice, and perhaps even influenced her later career at the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures, where she fought for fairness and transparency. This formative experience taught her that the real enemy often wears a smile and carries a quill, not a wand. While the movie succeeded in bringing to life the visual grandeur of the Triwizard Tournament, it failed to bring forth the emotional and psychological stakes that the book laid out with such precision. The subplot involving Witch Weekly, Rita Skeeter, and Hermione was more than a teenage scandal. It was a war of identity, privacy, and survival. In the end, Hermione's triumph wasn't loud or flashy. It was quiet and dignified. She endured the shame, exposed the liar, and protected others, all without seeking applause. The scars remained, but so did her strength. In erasing this from the screen, the film lost a chance to show not only who Hermione was, but what she stood for. Not just intellect and loyalty, but unwavering moral courage when it mattered most. Number 18, Harry refuses the tournament winnings. In the final chapters of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, as the dust settles from the catastrophic return of Lord Voldemort, there lies a quiet, overlooked moment that speaks volumes about the character of Harry Potter. A moment that was never adapted to the screen, never granted its due significance in the film version. In the book, after Cedric Diggory's death and the Triwizard Tournament's bitter end, Harry is awarded 1,000 galleons, the grand prize, for surviving the competition. But instead of pocketing the reward, he outright refuses it, deeming it tainted by tragedy. This is not just a passing scene, it's a deeply moral act that reveals Harry's unwavering sense of honor, something that the movie brushes aside entirely. In the book, Harry's refusal of the prize money is not driven by pride, nor by grief alone. It's driven by revulsion. He wants no part of the gold that came at the cost of Cedric Diggory's life. The galleons are symbolic, blood money for surviving a tournament that became a murder scene. While the Ministry tries to normalize the award, to continue the pageantry as if nothing horrific had happened, Harry sees the truth. The prize was meant for a victor, not a witness to death. The film chooses to omit this scene, but by doing so, it robs viewers of one of the most important insights into who Harry is at his core. When Harry tries to hand the prize money to Amos and Mrs. Diggory, they decline. There's nothing in the world that could ever replace Cedric. Nothing to buy, nothing to trade. That moment, too, is absent in the movie. There is no screen time for Amos Diggory's broken sobs, no haunting image of Mrs. Diggory holding back tears, while Harry, a boy of just 14, tries to ease their suffering with gold he doesn't even want. In the book, J.K. Rowling doesn't rush past this discomfort. She sits with it, lets it simmer in the reader's heart. Harry's guilt, his helplessness, and his moral clarity are not abstract ideas. They are lived experiences etched into the page. It is in the wake of that rejection, standing there with a fortune he never asked for, that Harry turns to Fred and George Weasley. He does not announce a grand gesture, he does not frame it as charity. What he does is quiet and sincere. He slips the money to the twins with a simple, revolutionary idea. Open your joke shop. For Harry, it's not about gold, it's about hope. About giving someone a reason to smile again in a world that just became a little darker. This isn't merely a financial decision, it's an emotional investment. He sees potential in Fred and George, in their laughter, their joy, their rebellion against the heaviness of war. The importance of this gesture is twofold. First, it reaffirms Harry's refusal to let grief be monetized, and second, it illustrates how he channels trauma into action. Rather than burying the galleons or letting them rot, he transforms them into something meaningful. Weasley's wizard. Weasley's isn't just a joke shop. It becomes a beacon of resistance, a sanctuary of laughter when everything else is falling apart. The seeds of that legacy are planted in this single moment of selflessness, a moment that never made it to the screen. "Take it," Harry says in the book when Fred and George hesitate. "You gave me the idea in the first place. The joke shop, I bet you'll be brilliant at it." This isn't just a casual donation, it's a vote of confidence, given at a time when the twins are constantly dismissed as unserious, even by their own family. No one expects them to succeed, no one except Harry. This belief in their dream is more valuable than the gold itself. It's a reaffirmation that joy has a place in war, that humor is a form of courage too. What makes this omission so jarring in the film is that it reduces Harry's complexity. The movie shows him grieving, but not choosing. It removes his agency in that grief. Viewers see his tears, but not his resistance to empty comfort. They see him somber, but not principled. And most importantly, they are denied the chance to see him transform that pain into something constructive. In the film, the 1,000 galleons vanish like a forgotten subplot. In the book, they become the foundation of a dream that will outlive Fred Weasley himself. This subtle but powerful moral decision fits the greater arc of Harry's character. From the very beginning, he has shied away from wealth, status, or reward. When offered Slytherin, he chose Gryffindor. When faced with the Philosopher's Stone, he asked for nothing. When Sirius offered a home, he focused first on saving Buckbeak. Harry's compass doesn't waver, not when he's mocked, not when he's wounded, not even when he's lost someone. His rejection of the Triwizard winnings is one more proof of this unshakable core. The emotional weight of this scene is further deepened by the timing. It happens when Harry is numb, barely able to process the trauma of the graveyard. He is plagued with nightmares, haunted by Voldemort's rebirth, alienated from friends who don't yet understand the magnitude of what he has seen. And yet in this fog of pain, he still finds the clarity to say, "This isn't mine." That kind of decision doesn't come from a place of calm reflection. It comes from instinct. The same instinct that made him dive into the Black Lake to save both Ron and Fleur's sister. The same instinct that made him face Voldemort with no wand in hand. Cedric's death was Harry's first true encounter with senseless loss. In earlier books, the deaths he hears about are filtered through memory or newspaper headlines. But here, in the graveyard, he sees it unfold. Cedric is alive one moment and dead the next, his body discarded like an afterthought. That moment scars Harry. He carries it through every subsequent book, and so when someone tries to hand him gold as a reward for surviving that horror, he reacts not with gratitude, but with disgust. It is a pure and unfiltered emotional truth. Money means nothing when someone's life has been taken. There is an echo of this sentiment in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows when Harry buries Dobby without magic, digging with his hands in the cold, hard earth. In both cases, Harry rejects ease, rejects the simple way, and chooses the path of meaning. These acts are not grandiose, they are personal, and that's what makes them powerful. They show that Harry's heroism is not just about facing monsters, it's about doing the right thing when no one is watching, about valuing life more than power, about seeing people even when the world wants to forget them. The cinematic version of Goblet of Fire ends on a note of ominous transition. The world is changing, Voldemort is back, and the golden days of childhood are ending. But without the scene of the prize refusal, that transition feels less personal. It becomes a plot development, not a moral awakening. In the book, the change is embodied in Harry himself. He walks away from the gold, walks away from the celebration, and steps into a darker world, carrying not riches, but a burden. That's the true coming-of-age moment, the rite of passage the movie overlooks. Fred and George's success, later in the series, becomes a symbol of resilience. Their shop on Diagon Alley is more than a business, it's a front line in the war, a shield of joy against the encroaching despair. Every prank, every product, every sparkle of mischief is rooted in Harry's act of generosity. Without that scene, viewers are left to assume the twins somehow pulled it off on their own. But the book shows otherwise. It shows that behind every act of brilliance, there's often a quiet supporter who believed when no one else did. In storytelling, moments of quiet defiance often say more than battles. Harry's refusal of the prize is one such moment. It is a whisper against injustice, a rejection of the idea that survival alone deserves celebration when others have died. The fact that the film omits this means it also omits one of Harry's clearest demonstrations of emotional maturity. He is no longer just a boy caught in a game. He is someone who sees the truth and chooses principle over comfort. J.K. Rowling crafted this scene with intention. It's not a narrative footnote, it's a milestone in Harry's moral evolution. And while movies must often condense or adapt, certain choices carry more weight than others. Leaving out this scene wasn't just a cut, it was a character omission. It was the silencing of a voice that chose honor over reward integrity over acceptance. And that silence still echoes in every rewatch. Number 19, Moaning Myrtle, flirting with Harry. In the steam-filled prefect's bathroom, where foam overflowed from the edges of an enchanted pool, and the golden tap spouted bubbles that shimmered with magic, Harry Potter had a mission. The mysterious golden egg clutched its secrets, and the Triwizard Tournament loomed ahead with its second task. But in this odd sanctuary of solitude, Harry wasn't as alone as he thought. The ghost of a long-dead girl, forever bound to Hogwarts pipes and plumbing, hovered just beneath the surface of the water, literally and emotionally. Moaning Myrtle was waiting, and the encounter that followed in J.K. Rowling's book was far more unsettling, intimate, and deeply revealing than what audiences saw on screen. Myrtle's sudden appearance in the bath was jarring in the novel Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. As Harry slipped into the water, uncomfortable and confused, the air thickened with more than steam. It carried the presence of something he could not see, but soon felt. Myrtle made herself known with her usual mournful tone, but this time there was a glint of something else, a disturbing sense of flirtation. Rowling crafted the scene with layered discomfort, balancing the ridiculous with the eerie. "I closed my eyes when you got in," Myrtle whispered from somewhere beneath the bubbles, "but you haven't been to see me for ages." It was the ghost's brittle way of addressing her loneliness, but also a thin veil over her true desire. Attention from the living boy in the bath. In the book, Myrtle hovered close, not just in spirit, but in proximity. Harry, already embarrassed by the idea of opening the golden egg in a bath while stark naked, was made all the more nervous by Myrtle's curious gaze. The narration describes how she floated with her eyes barely above the waterline, eerily fixated on him. And Harry, though flustered, knew better than to react too aggressively. He felt sorry for her, this girl who had died in a toilet and now spent eternity peeking at students in moments of vulnerability. Myrtle's attention wasn't just ghostly mischief, it was a haunting glimpse into the broken remnants of someone who had never known normal affection when alive. The film adaptation reduced this entire moment to a scene of mild comedy, focusing on Harry's shocked reaction and Myrtle's sarcastic humor. She darted around him with playful lines and over-the-top facial expressions. But the depth of emotion, the raw awkwardness of a teenage boy being observed in his most private moment by a ghost with unresolved feelings, was scrubbed out. Gone were Myrtle's remarks about other champions. Gone were her subtle yet disturbing references to voyeurism. Gone was the pathos. In its place was a sequence diluted to amuse and not disturb, sanitized for a broader audience who perhaps didn't want to sit with Myrtle's pain too long. What the book does so masterfully is blur the line between sympathy and discomfort. Myrtle is not just comic relief, she is a tragic figure. When she mentions, almost in passing, that she had also visited Victor Crumb in his bath, there is a chill beneath the words. "He was much more sensitive," she tells Harry. "He'd even talk to me sometimes." It's a line heavy with implication. The idea that she's been making her ghostly rounds during such private moments isn't played for laughs in the book. It's deeply uncomfortable, and yet it's impossible not to feel for her. She's not malicious, she's clinging to the last remnants of interaction, however inappropriate or misguided. This complex layering is lost entirely in the film. On screen, Myrtle teases Harry, speaking in high-pitched whines, circling him as though she's a mischievous child rather than a soul frozen in teenage limbo. She is funny, yes, but she is no longer tragic. Her lines are trimmed of their ambiguity, the intensity of her emotional hunger, the desperation to be seen, to be heard, to be desired even in death, is turned into light slapstick. And the result is a ghost who might earn a chuckle, but never a pang of the heart. In the book, Rowling never allows us to forget how Myrtle died, mocked, bullied, abandoned in her final moments. Her interactions with Harry in the bath are tinted by that sadness. She flirts not because she's confident or seductive, but because it's all she knows. She longs for connection in the only ways available to her, even if they cross boundaries. She admits she likes the prefect's bathroom because boys tend to come in alone. The sentence hangs heavy with tragic implication. Myrtle is not just lingering out of mischief. She haunts the steam not just because she can, but because she's forgotten what warmth feels like. She's drawn to Harry's vulnerability because it mirrors her own. Harry's discomfort is palpable in the book. He doesn't know where to look. He tries to focus on the egg, on the mermaid's song hidden within it. But Myrtle keeps breaking his concentration, both physically and emotionally. She floats beside him, under him, behind him. She offers clues and insights, but always with that eerie undercurrent of need. She warns him that the clue in the egg is time-sensitive. "You've got to think about the time," she says cryptically, but it's clear that for her, time has stopped. The clocks don't tick when you're dead, only echo, and Myrtle is stuck in that echo. This scene, for all its strangeness, offers one of the most poignant explorations of loneliness in the entire series. Myrtle, frozen forever at the age she died, embodies the fear of being forgotten. Her flirtation with Harry is clumsy, even wrong, but it's not predatory, it's desperate. She sees Harry as someone who might not laugh at her, who might treat her as more than a joke. And for a fleeting moment she helps him. Not because she's assigned to, but because she wants to feel useful, wanted, alive. It's important to remember that Myrtle's death was not a quiet one. She was killed by the basilisk in the Chamber of Secrets, a victim of dark magic, ignored by her peers, and mocked even after her demise. Her ghostly existence is a continuation of her suffering. She is the only character who consistently oscillates between comic relief and tragic figure. The bath scene in the book is one of the few moments where those two aspects collide, and the result is haunting, not in the way of poltergeists or curses, but in the quiet ache of a soul who was never truly loved. By editing this moment into something tame and silly, the film lost the opportunity to deepen both Myrtle's character and Harry's arc. In the novel, his interactions with Myrtle show his compassion. He never shouts at her, never calls her names, never laughs. Even when he's squirming in the water, he treats her with an awkward kind of respect. It shows his growth. The boy who once found her annoying now sees her pain. And perhaps that's what makes the book's version so powerful. The unspoken bond between two people who know what it's like to be isolated. Myrtle's line, "If you die down there, you're welcome to share my toilet," is morbid and hilarious, yes. But it's also a twisted form of affection. It's an offer of companionship from someone who has nothing else to give. In the book, this line lands with a strange mix of amusement and pity. In the film, it becomes a gag. The weight of her words is lost, and with it, a chance to explore what makes Myrtle one of the most complex minor characters in the series. Rowling's gift lies in her ability to make even the most ridiculous figures resonate with emotional truth. Moaning Myrtle is no exception. The scene in the prefect's bathroom is not just a stepping stone towards solving the egg's mystery. It's a glimpse into the sad reality of ghosthood, of adolescence frozen in time, of love that never got the chance to bloom. It's uncomfortable, yes, but that discomfort is deliberate. It's meant to make the reader pause, to sit with the strangeness of a world where even the dead want to be held. The film chose brevity over nuance, laughter over tension. It made Myrtle a side character again, rather than the ghostly mirror of every awkward teenager who's ever wanted to be seen. And in doing so, it missed a quiet truth whispered beneath the bubbles, that sometimes the most haunting things are not curses or hexes, but the absence of love. Number 20. The Hogwarts Kitchens. In Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, one of the most quietly enchanting and symbolically potent settings never makes it to the screen. Deep beneath the Great Hall, hidden behind a portrait of a large bowl of fruit, lies the Hogwarts kitchen, a place brimming with domestic magic, gentle humour, and subtle rebellion. In the book, it is here that Harry, Ron, and Hermione discover an entirely new dimension to Hogwarts. The kitchen is not merely a functional space where meals are prepared. It is a living, breathing testament to the invisible labour that sustains the castle's magic. It is where the reader is first introduced to the house elves of Hogwarts, cheerful, diligent, and, most strikingly, enslaved. The film adaptation, in its effort to condense an already vast narrative, omits this detail entirely, but in doing so it quietly excises an entire subplot of compassion, resistance, and ethical awakening. When Hermione Granger drags her friends into the kitchen, she is not following a plot thread, but a moral compass. Their first descent into the heart of Hogwarts's culinary system is described with warmth and sensory richness. Rowling paints a cosy underground world where a great brick fireplace at the other end was roaring and hissing with flames, and at least 100 little elves were standing around the long tables. These elves are the ones who prepare the banquets, the breakfasts, the midnight feasts. They take pride in their work, or so it seems. They greet Harry with joy, recognizing him instantly, offering food and comfort. The contrast between their cheery demeanor and the reality of their servitude forms the basis of Hermione's outrage. What appears heartwarming to Ron and mildly curious to Harry ignites a fire within her. This kitchen scene is not just a charming interlude, it is the birthplace of SPEW, the Society for the Promotion of Elfish Welfare. Without this scene, the film erases the very context that gives Hermione's activism its urgency. The house elves are invisible in the movies, their storylines flattened or abandoned. Winky, the disgraced former elf of Barty Crouch Sr., never appears. Her heartbreak and drunken despair are never shown. And most glaringly, Dobby, already a familiar figure from Chamber of Secrets, is absent from Goblet of Fire entirely. Yet in the book, Dobby's presence in the kitchen is not only touching, it is critical. He has found employment at Hogwarts, the first elf ever to receive wages and time off. This detail, seemingly small, is a quiet revolution. Professor Dumbledore offered Dobby 10 galleons a week and weekends off, Dobby says proudly. But Dobby beat him down, sir. Dobby likes freedom, but he isn't wanting too much, sir. His words reflect a conflicted, nuanced take on liberation, unique among the elves. The absence of the kitchen also cuts away at the story's ethical complexity. Winky, in her despair, reveals crucial hints about the Crouch family's secrets. Her fear of heights and her loyalty to her disgraced master set the stage for the darker revelations about Barty Crouch Jr. These clues, given in slurred whispers over butterbeer, are vital in the book's slow unravelling of the mystery behind the Triwizard Tournament. By removing her and the space she inhabits, the movie streamlines the narrative at the cost of depth. The result is a cleaner story but a less resonant one. There is no moral ambiguity, no discomforting challenge to the status quo of the magical world. In the book, the kitchen also functions as a space of healing and hospitality. When Harry visits during Christmas, the elves prepare a special meal for him. He sits, surrounded by warmth, far from the cold judgment of his peers. Dobby, in this scene, presents Harry with his now iconic, mismatched socks, handmade and vibrant. The gift is more than a comic moment. It is love, freedom, and dignity woven into wool. Dobby is making them himself, sir, he beams. This moment of friendship, quiet and sincere, strengthens their bond in ways no battle or rescue could. Without it, the film fails to fully portray the emotional thread between Harry and Dobby, making the events of Deathly Hallows feel less earned. The house elves, as introduced in the kitchen, also serve as a mirror to the wizarding world's blind spots. Ron's casual dismissal of Hermione's cause, "You're mad," he tells her, reflects a broader magical society that accepts servitude as tradition. Even kind-hearted characters like Hagrid and Professor McGonagall show little concern for the elves' plight. The book forces readers to confront uncomfortable truths that even in a world of magic, prejudice and exploitation persist. The kitchen, warm and bustling, becomes the stage for this confrontation. It shows that kindness does not erase injustice, and that tradition can be laced with cruelty. Hermione's crusade, born in that kitchen, is clumsy, often ignored, even ridiculed. Yet it is one of the most consistent arcs in her character. She is not content with theory or grades. She wants change. She knits hats for the elves, leaves them in common spaces, writes pamphlets. She is relentless, and while her campaign never gains mass support, it marks a shift, a willingness to challenge the very foundations of the magical society. This dimension of Hermione is barely acknowledged in the films. She remains brilliant and brave, but her political fire is dampened. Without the kitchen, without the elves, she loses a crucial part of her identity. It is not only Hermione who is affected. Harry's sense of justice is sharpened through these encounters. His loyalty to Dobby deepens with each meeting. He sees the cost of freedom, the loneliness of being different. In the kitchen, he is reminded that not all battles involve wands and duels. Some are fought in conversations, in gifts, in listening. The film, by excluding this space, subtly repositions Harry as a purely external hero, rather than one who also grows inwardly through quiet acts of empathy. The Hogwarts kitchen, in its absence, becomes a symbol of all that is lost in adaptation. It is not a place of major battles or prophecies, but of gentle revolutions. Rowling's decision to anchor this change in a domestic setting is deliberate. She shows that the fight for justice does not always begin with thunder and lightning. Sometimes it begins with a sock, sometimes with soup, sometimes with a girl who refuses to look away. Dobby's employment, Winky's disgrace, the elves' collective cheerfulness, all these details enrich the world beyond plot. They challenge the reader's assumptions. They demand reflection. The elves are not simple creatures. They are bound by powerful magic, conditioned by centuries of obedience. Even their joy is suspect. "House elves is not supposed to be paid," Winky cries. "This is not the way things is done in proper households." The complexity here is striking. Emancipation is not a single act. It is a painful, ongoing struggle. The kitchen, in its small way, represents the broader themes of Goblet of Fire. The book, more than the previous ones, delves into the idea that institutions, schools, governments, traditions, can be flawed. The Triwizard Tournament is corrupted, the Ministry of Magic is blind, and the very structure of Hogwarts rests, in part, on invisible labor. The kitchen invites readers to see what lies beneath the feast, to question who makes the magic work. The film, by ignoring this, offers a world more wondrous but less honest. By removing the kitchen, the filmmakers also diminish the continuity of Dobby's story. He becomes a character who appears in Chamber of Secrets and then vanishes, only to reappear in Deathly Hallows with little emotional build-up. His job at Hogwarts, his proud independence, his continuing friendship with Harry, these are milestones the viewer never sees. So when Dobby dies, saving Harry and his friends, the full weight of that sacrifice is blunted. In the book, the loss is devastating precisely because we have seen Dobby grow. The kitchen was his home, his sanctuary. To cut it is to cut part of his soul. The kitchen also adds texture to Hogwarts itself. It makes the castle feel real, lived in. Not just a backdrop for battles and broomsticks, but a place with routines, smells and workers. Rowling excels at this, giving even the smallest corners of her world depth and meaning. The kitchen, with its clanging pots and busy elves, is part of that magic. To leave it out is to flatten Hogwarts into a stage set rather than a world. Ultimately, the absence of the Hogwarts kitchen is more than a missed opportunity for world building. It is a missed opportunity for heart. In that hidden chamber beneath the great hall, meals are made, friendships are formed, and small acts of rebellion unfold in aprons and butterbeer. The elves do not wield wands, but they carry a history of servitude and a potential for freedom. And it all begins in a room the film chose not to show. Number 21, Professor Trelawney in the Shadows. In the dense shadows of Hogwarts during the most turbulent year of the Triwizard Tournament, a quiet, yet unsettling presence moved through the corridors, unseen by most but never entirely absent. Professor Sybil Trelawney, often dismissed as a crank or a fraud by her peers and students, played a more significant role in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire than the film ever allowed us to see. The omission of her growing unease, cryptic mutterings and eerie sensitivity to the coming darkness in the movie adaptation robbed viewers of a chilling and vital undercurrent that J.K. Rowling subtly wove into the book's fabric. Throughout the novel, Trelawney exists not just as comic relief but as a mirror to the shifting magical atmosphere. Her presence in the Great Hall is marked not by grandeur or authority, but by whispered warnings and anxious glances. She drifts into the periphery of scenes, unsettling students with her erratic behavior and uncanny timing. While many believe her to be mad, a woman drunk on sherry and illusions, a closer reader notices how her scattered prophecies align too often with events still to unfold. The Dark Lord will rise again with his servant's aid, greater and more terrible than ever before, she once prophesied in The Prisoner of Azkaban, a fact conveniently forgotten by those who chuckle at her tea leaves. In The Goblet of Fire, her role is not grand in scale, but charged with symbolic resonance. Her murmurs begin to grow more frequent, her discomfort more visible. When Harry returns to Hogwarts after his name is unexpectedly selected by the Goblet, Trelawney becomes increasingly agitated. She is shown in the book muttering to herself, looking around as if the shadows held secrets only she could hear. She shuffles into the Great Hall during meals, occasionally releasing cryptic phrases that send shivers down the spines of her listeners. "Beware! The approaching darkness," she mumbles one evening, her voice trailing off into the clatter of silverware and the skeptical laughter of students. The film adaptation, however, grants her no such haunting presence. Emma Thompson's brilliant portrayal of the divination professor in The Prisoner of Azkaban vanishes entirely in The Goblet of Fire. Not a single flicker of her disturbing intuition or disquieting presence appears on screen. Her character is erased as if the intangible sense of growing dread she embodies holds no value. But the book tells another story, one in which Sybil Trelawney is not merely a theatrical figure cloaked in shawls and perfume, but a flawed seer whose subconscious warnings hint at the terrors to come. One of the most unsettling moments comes when Trelawney unknowingly channels a darker truth while teaching divination. She suddenly grows pale and shudders, whispering about the servant who has been chained these 12 years, returning to his master. To the untrained ear, it sounds like gibberish. To those who recall her first prophecy, it is a dire echo of what is soon to happen with Barty Crouch Jr. and Voldemort. It is in this subtle layering that Rowling's genius lies, her ability to tuck away truths in the mouths of unreliable narrators. Sybil Trelawney may not control when real prophecy bursts forth, but her tremors, her anxiety, her morbid warnings are not baseless. The absence of Trelawney from the movie also erases a critical emotional contrast within the narrative. While Dumbledore remains calm, Harry remains confused, and the school is busy with festivities, Trelawney alone walks the hallways like a ghost, burdened by something she can't name. She is the human barometer of unseen forces, a trembling needle reacting to the rise of something ancient and terrible. "It is nearer than you think," she murmurs one morning to Parvati Patil, who promptly recoils, unsure whether to laugh or run. But this moment, like so many others, never made it to the screen. This exclusion flattens the emotional texture of The Goblet of Fire. Without Trelawney's fragmented foresight, the story becomes a sequence of events rather than a crescendo of doom. The book masterfully builds tension, not just through plot twists but through atmosphere. Every glance from Trelawney, every vague whisper, adds to the mounting dread. When Cedric Diggory dies and Voldemort rises again, the reader remembers the signs. The warnings were there, scattered like breadcrumbs in the fog, but dismissed as lunacy. Trelawney is not just a background character, she is the Cassandra of Hogwarts, cursed to speak truths that no one believes. In truth, the most fascinating aspect of Trelawney's presence in the Goblet of Fire is the emotional toll her vague foresight takes on her. She is a woman, fraying at the edges, burdened by a gift she barely understands and cannot control. Her mental state deteriorates, not due to madness, but from the spiritual strain of feeling something monstrous moving closer with every passing day. In the book, when Harry sees her in the staff room, she is hunched and weary, staring into the fire as if trying to divine the future in the smoke. This subtle image of a broken prophet, haunted by the shadows in her mind, is entirely absent from the cinematic version. Rowling's decision to keep her in the story, even in short bursts, speaks to her deeper purpose in the narrative. Trelawney is not meant to be a comic figure alone. She represents the overlooked truth, the mystical undercurrent of the wizarding world that logic and reason cannot touch. Her connection to prophecy, whether involuntary or intuitive, suggests that magic is not always about control. Sometimes it's about surrendering to forces too vast to comprehend. By cutting her out, the movie severs one of the story's few ties to this mysterious realm. Even Dumbledore, who often tolerates Trelawney's dramatic performances with gentle indifference, keeps her at Hogwarts for a reason. Her previous prophecy about Voldemort was instrumental in shaping the series' central arc. In The Goblet of Fire, her subtle reawakening to the coming storm hints that her role in the war is not yet over. Her unease is not random, it's the alarm bell of fate ringing faintly in the distance. To ignore her is to ignore the ancient, chaotic side of magic that refuses to be bound by reason or restraint. The student's fear of her also deepens in this book, not because she becomes more aggressive, but because her predictions begin to cut closer to reality. When she warns of tragedy during the Yule Ball preparations or stares too long at Ron with a look of sad resignation, readers start to notice that not everything she says is fluff. Even Hermione, who famously calls her a fraud, seems quieter after one of Trelawney's more somber appearances. There is something unsettling in a person who constantly speaks of death and misfortune, and who may, from time to time, be right. And then there's Harry himself. Though he is mostly dismissive of Trelawney, her words linger with him longer than he admits. After each terrifying dream, each scar-tingling vision, he begins to sense that her mutterings are not entirely disconnected from his own experience. She becomes a mirror, however distorted, to his growing connection with the dark. Had the film included even one such moment, a flicker of realization in Harry's eyes, a shiver when Trelawney passes him in the hallway, the storytelling would have gained a new dimension of psychological depth. In many ways, Trelawney represents the tragedy of knowledge unheeded. She is not a warrior, nor a teacher of practical skill. She is the mouthpiece of fate, babbling in riddles and shrouded in incense. Yet, in ignoring her, the wizarding world dooms itself to walk blindly into danger. Her mutterings in The Goblet of Fire are the early beats of the war drum, faint but insistent. Her eyes see shadows before they fall. The movie stripped her away and lost that eerie music of inevitability. Her final appearance in the book, drifting out of the staff room as if she had walked through a dream, solidifies her as a being partially removed from the physical world. Trelawney is caught between dimensions, sensitive to tremors that others ignore. She is the only one, apart from Harry and Dumbledore, who seems to feel what is coming long before it arrives. Her excision from the film is more than a creative choice. It is a silencing of the mystical thread that binds the wizarding world to its deeper, darker currents. By choosing spectacle over subtlety, The filmmakers missed the chance to elevate the Goblet of Fire into something more than a tournament story. They missed the rustle of prophecy in the corridors, the flicker of foresight behind thick spectacles, the murmur of doom amid the clinking of goblets. Sybil Trelawney, in all her trembling madness, is not just a forgotten professor. She is a forgotten warning, and in the Goblet of Fire, she is perhaps the only one who truly knows what's coming. Number 22, Harry's Trauma After the Graveyard. Harry Potter reappeared in the maze, clutching the lifeless body of Cedric Diggory, and the world shattered around him. The screams from the crowd, the panic of the teachers, the cries of Amos Diggory, all of it blurred into a haze of noise. In the movie, Harry is shown shaken, eyes wide, breathing hard. But in the book, something much more profound unfolds. Harry is not merely scared or shocked. He is hollowed out, gutted, stripped of the innocence that once cushioned his understanding of danger. The moment he returns from the graveyard is not the end of the Triwizard Tournament. It is the beginning of a brutal psychological war. The film misses this entirely. J.K. Rowling devotes several haunting paragraphs to Harry's state after returning from the graveyard. He is not the same boy who entered the maze. There is a line in the book that defines his condition. He felt as though all the energy had drained out of him. There was a terrible hollow inside him he did not think would ever go away. This sentence does not describe fear, it describes trauma. Harry is not just rattled by the events. He is fundamentally altered. His body is cold. He shivers at any touch, especially when someone tries to comfort him. He no longer wants to be surrounded, he wants isolation. The film offers a brief glance at Harry in the hospital wing, but it skips the long, raw aftermath that stretches over chapters. After Cedric's death, Harry becomes a prisoner inside his own mind. In the hospital wing, when Dumbledore speaks to him, Harry cannot respond. He stares at the ceiling, his hands clenched. Madame Pomfrey tries to tend to him, but her kindness feels invasive. He doesn't want sympathy. He doesn't want explanations. Harry did not want to talk. He wanted to be left alone. He wanted to sleep. He wanted to stop reliving Cedric's death over and over again in his mind. The movie never shows this desperation for silence and escape. It simply moves on to the next event. Guilt seeps into every part of Harry's being. He blames himself for what happened to Cedric. The portkey had been meant for him. He knew that. Voldemort had ordered the death of the spare without hesitation. Cedric's life was a casualty of being near Harry, and Harry cannot shake that. In the book, he thinks constantly about Cedric's parents. When Amos Diggory cries out at the sight of his son's body, Harry wants to disappear. He wanted to tell them it wasn't his fault, but the words wouldn't come. He cannot grieve properly because he is too busy drowning in the weight of his own self-loathing. In the following days, Harry avoids people. He eats little. He doesn't speak unless spoken to. Even Ron and Hermione cannot get through to him. There is a telling moment on the train ride back to London when Harry sits in silence as his friends talk around him. He zones out. He hears them but doesn't register their words. The narration simply says, Harry was staring out of the window, his face pale and set. This level of detachment, this mental retreat, is never explored in the film. And yet it is here, in this moment, that the true transformation of Harry Potter begins. Harry's nightmares return with new intensity. He dreams of Voldemort. He dreams of Cedric's death. He wakes up in cold sweats. He cannot sleep through the night. These details are mentioned repeatedly in the text, anchoring the reality of his trauma. Rowling does not brush past these moments. She allows them to linger, creating a suffocating atmosphere around Harry's internal collapse. The film rushes to its end credits without pausing to consider the long-term consequences of what Harry endured. It does not show his fear of being touched. It does not show how he flinches when people get too close. It does not show the invisible wounds. When Dumbledore talks to Harry after the events, he acknowledges the weight Harry is carrying. He doesn't offer hollow encouragement. Instead, he validates Harry's experience. "You have shown bravery beyond anything I could have expected." But Harry does not feel brave. He feels cursed. The dissonance between how others view him and how he sees himself becomes a powerful undercurrent. He receives admiration, but what he wants is absolution. What he wants is Cedric alive again. No praise can fill the void. The movie hints at this conflict but never embraces it with the gravity it deserves. The weight of trauma does not vanish with summer. In Order of the Phoenix, the consequences of that night on the graveyard are still deeply rooted in Harry's behavior. He is angrier, more defensive, more withdrawn. But without fully showing his psychological collapse in Goblet of Fire, the film adaptation of the fifth installment makes Harry's rage feel abrupt. It is not. It is the result of everything left unsaid, everything buried under the surface. Cedric's death was not a moment. It was a rupture. The pain that Harry carries is amplified by the indifference of the outside world. The Ministry of Magic denies that Voldemort has returned. Newspapers paint Harry as unstable. Even as he grapples with trauma, he is forced to fight for credibility. "They all think I'm lying," he says. The sense of abandonment becomes complete. Harry is left alone to carry the truth, the memory, and the guilt. The film never gives enough space to this isolation. It skips the part where Harry becomes a figure of suspicion instead of support. This isolation is what makes the bond between Harry and Dumbledore so critical. And yet even Dumbledore, in his desire to protect Harry, keeps his distance. The emotional cost of being the boy who lived has never been higher. Rowling writes with painful clarity, "He didn't want to be Harry Potter anymore." This is not melodrama, this is despair. The film never utters these words. It never allows Harry to express this wish. It misses the depth of his existential crisis. There's also the symbolism of Cedric's death that the movie barely acknowledges. Cedric was everything Hogwarts stood for: fairness, sportsmanship, kindness, bravery. His death is not just the loss of a friend, it is the death of a golden ideal. When Cedric falls, something inside Harry falls too. The boy who once played Quidditch with joy now wakes up each night with clenched fists. The boy who once viewed magic as wonder now understands its cruelty. This shift in perception is essential, but the film fails to capture it. The way Harry avoids his reflection, the way he stares at the floor, the way he moves slower, talks less, smiles never, these are not minor changes, they are signs of grief, they are the fingerprints of trauma. And while Rowling shows them with care, the film edits them out in favor of pacing and spectacle. It's understandable as a cinematic decision, but it robs the viewer of Harry's inner world. It removes the very essence of what makes this chapter, in his life, a turning point. One of the most powerful moments in the book occurs when Harry, unable to sleep, sneaks out of the hospital wing. He finds himself in Dumbledore's office. There, he learns how Fawkes the Phoenix can heal with his tears. Harry watches the bird burst into flame, only to rise again. Rowling never makes the metaphor explicit, but it's there. Harry, too, must burn before he can rise. The film cuts this scene. It removes one of the most delicate images of recovery and resilience. The result is a film that shows Voldemort's return, but not the emotional earthquake that follows. It delivers the danger without the cost. It shows the resurrection of evil, but not the death of Harry's innocence. The book is not content to stop at horror. It lingers in the aftermath, in the quiet corners where trauma grows roots. The film, eager to conclude, leaves those corners unexplored. Even small moments are stripped away. In the book, when Harry gives his Triwizard winnings to Fred and George to start their joke shop, it is not just a gesture, it is a rejection of wealth born of pain. Take it, I don't want it. That money, earned in a tournament that ended in death, is something Harry cannot bear to keep. It becomes one more ghost he must leave behind. The film skips this, and in doing so, it removes yet another layer of Harry's healing process. By not showing the true depth of Harry's breakdown, the film denies viewers the chance to walk with him through his grief. It skips the trembling hands, the sleepless nights, the distant stares. It skips the cold sweat, the clenched jaw, the fragile silence. But the book holds us there, asking us not to turn away, asking us to understand that heroism is not found only in duels and dragons, but in the quiet, aching act of surviving what should have broken you. Number 23, The Shadow of Voldemort in Everyday Life. In the opening chapter of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, a sinister presence lurks behind the sleepy English countryside. The Riddle House, long abandoned and draped in whispers of a forgotten murder, sits as a monument to a mystery no Muggle ever unravelled. Frank Bryce, the elderly caretaker, stumbles upon an eerie conversation in the upper room, Voldemort still formless, plotting murder with Peter Pettigrew. This scene, drenched in tension and foreshadowing, is the novel's quiet declaration that Voldemort is not gone, not forgotten, and certainly not idle. The film, however, compresses this moment, offering only a flash of horror that strips away the dread Rowling so carefully plants. Without this creeping prologue, the audience loses the slow realization that evil has already returned. It's just waiting to be reborn. From the first pages, the book saturates the world with unease. Harry's dreams, especially the one where he witnesses Voldemort planning to kill a Muggle, are more than supernatural visions. They are psychic echoes of a world tilting back into chaos. Rowling does not allow readers to rest in the illusion of peace. She tears the veil early, making it clear that something old and terrifying is stirring. In contrast, the film places the burden of revelation on the climax, creating a jarring transition that feels abrupt rather than inevitable. In the book, Voldemort's shadow moves silently through scenes long before his body walks among them. The tension mounts like a gathering storm, never loud, never visible, but always there. Barty Crouch Sr., a man with secrets carved into the furrows of his face, becomes a living symptom of Voldemort's return. In the book, his erratic behavior is a mystery that grows more troubling with every scene. He speaks oddly to Percy, disappears unexpectedly, and seems haunted by forces unseen. These details hint that something is deeply wrong, something connected to the dark figure Harry keeps dreaming about. The film glosses over these peculiarities, reducing Crouch to a minor official with little narrative weight. But in the book, every twitch and silence is loaded with foreboding. He becomes a human thread unraveling before the reader's eyes, part of the tapestry that leads inevitably to Voldemort's return. Even the Quidditch World Cup, a moment of international celebration and magical spectacle, is pierced by darkness. The sudden attack by Death Eaters, the dark mark burned into the sky, the panic and disarray. It all shatters any illusion that the magical world is safe. This isn't just a random act of violence, it's a message. The dark mark, as Arthur Weasley gravely explains, hasn't been seen for 13 years. The novel treats this event not as an isolated moment, but as the first public whisper that Voldemort's followers are stirring. The film, while dramatic in its depiction, fails to capture the depth of this scene's significance, the weight of history, the trembling fear in the hearts of older wizards, the realization that the past is clawing its way back. All of it is muted. Harry's own experiences reinforce the rising dread. His scar burns in his sleep, unprovoked, and he begins to fear its warnings. In one passage, Rowling writes, Harry sat bolt upright, one hand clutching his scar, the other reaching for his wand. This is not a boy reacting to a nightmare. This is a connection being reforged between predator and prey. The bond between Harry and Voldemort, fragile and cursed, becomes more active with each page. The film, however, treats these scar pains almost as throwaway moments. They occur, but lack the emotional and narrative gravity they carry in the book. The viewer does not live inside Harry's dread. The reader, however, is immersed in it. Sirius Black, hiding in the shadows of Europe, becomes another thread of unease. His letters are filled with warnings, urging caution, begging Harry to be vigilant. In one letter, Sirius writes, "I want you to keep your eyes open, Harry. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that you can't always trust what you see." The book uses Sirius not just as a mentor, but as a voice echoing the rising panic of those who once fought the First War. He feels the tremors before others admit the earthquake is coming. The film downplays his role, offering only brief scenes that strip Sirius of his prophetic voice. Even among the students, there are whispers. Durmstrang's connection to the dark arts, Victor Krumm's mysterious headmaster, and the sudden arrival of foreign magic schools add a layer of unpredictability. The atmosphere at Hogwarts shifts. It is no longer just a school, it becomes a place of espionage and deception. The Triwizard Tournament is not only a contest of skill, but a chessboard where darker forces begin to move pieces. In the book, these tensions simmer with every interaction. Characters don't trust each other. Secrets are everywhere. The film, however, focuses heavily on the spectacle of the tournament and neglects the undercurrents of fear and suspicion that define the book's mood. Mad-Eye. Moody's introduction in the novel is not merely quirky, it's unsettling. The real Alastor Moody never appears in Goblet of Fire, and Barty Crouch Jr.'s impersonation is more than deception, it's infiltration. Every lesson, every word is filtered through the mind of a Death Eater. Rowling masterfully builds this tension. The reader starts to question Moody's methods, his unpredictability, his interest in Harry. By the time the truth is revealed, the reader has been dancing on the edge of suspicion for hundreds of pages. The film, in contrast, delivers the twist with far less build-up. The impersonation is clever but lacks the psychological slow burn that makes it so horrifying in the book. The Pensieve sequence, where Harry dives into Dumbledore's memories, reveals the past crimes of Death Eaters. Names like Bellatrix Lestrange and Barty Crouch Jr. emerge from the shadows. These memories are not just historical context, they are warnings. Evil is not abstract in this world. It has names, faces, and methods. The book treats these memories with reverence, allowing readers to see the weight Dumbledore carries. The film, however, condenses this arc, minimizing the role of the Pensieve and the rich tapestry of backstory it unveils. As a result, the rising return of Voldemort feels less rooted in history, less tied to the personal sacrifices made to stop him. Even Dumbledore himself is affected. In the book, he becomes more restless, more reflective. He begins to speak in riddles, to prepare Harry subtly for the storm ahead. He tells him, "Dark and difficult times lie ahead, Harry. Soon we must all face the choice between what is right and what is easy." This line, so iconic, is delivered with gravity in the book, surrounded by an atmosphere of coming doom. The film includes the line but fails to support it with the surrounding emotional texture. Dumbledore's urgency, his inner conflict, his sorrow, these are all trimmed down, weakening the sense that something monumental is shifting in the magical world. The fate of Bertha Jorkins, mentioned frequently in the book, is another shadow cast by Voldemort. Her disappearance is not just a bureaucratic mystery, it is a breadcrumb trail leading to the Dark Lord. When Sirius explains that her memory was tampered with, that she might have known too much, the reader understands that Voldemort has been active for months, slowly building his strength. The film barely mentions Bertha, robbing the viewer of this crucial piece of the puzzle. Without her, Voldemort's reappearance seems sudden, disconnected from prior clues. In the book, her name is a warning bell few take seriously, until it's too late. Wormtail's role in the novel is another subtle manifestation of Voldemort's return. Peter Pettigrew, once thought weak and cowardly, becomes a vessel for rebirth. He is not just a servant, he is a symbol of treachery and transformation. His presence in the Riddle House, his preparations for the ritual, his murder of Cedric, all emphasize how far the old darkness has already reached. The book uses him as a silent spectre of the past made flesh. The film treats him more as a background element, a tool for Voldemort's resurrection rather than a chilling sign of loyalty reborn. Perhaps most powerful is the way Rowling uses the magical world itself to reflect growing dread. Spells go awry, teachers speak in hushed tones, even Hagrid seems more guarded. The book portrays a world holding its breath. Every adult character who lived through Voldemort's reign walks with invisible scars. They look over their shoulders, they flinch at shadows. This emotional atmosphere creates a chilling sense that the war never really ended, it only paused. The film fails to translate this mood. Its tone remains largely adventurous until the final act, robbing viewers of the emotional depth that makes Voldemort's return so harrowing. By the time Harry is standing in the graveyard, face to face with Voldemort, the reader has already arrived emotionally. It is not a surprise, it is a confirmation of everything they have been dreading. The resurrection scene is terrifying not just because of what happens, but because we've seen it coming. We feared it in dreams, in whispers, in newspaper clippings. The film makes this moment explosive, but robs it of emotional payoff. It happens too fast with too little build-up. The sense that an era has ended, that the world has changed forever, is only partially conveyed. In the book, however, every page leading up to it was a quiet drumbeat of dread until the final, deafening crash. Number 24, The Tragic Story of the Crouch Family. In Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, the story of the Crouch family carries the weight of a Shakespearean tragedy, yet the film adaptation glosses over it with a few lines and a dramatic reveal. The book, however, paints a haunting portrait of a man consumed by duty and of a son shattered by abandonment. Bartemius Crouch Sr. was a towering figure in the wizarding world, known for his unflinching dedication to justice. He rose swiftly in the Ministry of Magic, gaining respect and fear in equal measure. During Voldemort's first rise to power, Crouch Sr. was the face of order and retribution. He sanctioned the use of unforgivable curses by auras and sent suspected Death Eaters to Azkaban without trial. His was a regime of zero tolerance, and to many he seemed more ruthless than Voldemort's followers themselves. Yet beneath this facade of control lay the unraveling thread of his own home. Barty Crouch Jr., his only son, grew up in a house ruled by law, not affection. There was no warmth in the Crouch household, only expectations. Young Bartemius did not rebel out of mere curiosity. He hungered for identity, for attention, for anything that could separate him from the iron shadow of his father. In the book, Sirius Black offers Harry a glimpse into this neglected upbringing, remarking, "Crouch's own son, he's gone off his rocker, hasn't he? The boy was always in his father's shadow, always trying to prove something. It's not justification, but it is an explanation, a tragic seed planted in barren soil." The moment of Crouch Jr.'s arrest is portrayed in the book with grave solemnity. Caught alongside Bellatrix Lestrange and other loyalists of Voldemort, he screamed in desperation, protesting his innocence, crying for his father. But Crouch Sr., ever the embodiment of justice, did not waver. He sentenced his son to a lifetime in Azkaban. Publicly, it was a mark of integrity. No one, not even his own child, was above the law. Privately, it shattered what remained of his family. The mother, Mrs. Crouch, frail and terminally ill, could not bear to see her son die in that cold, soulless prison. In the book, it is revealed that she made a final, desperate plea to trade places with her son using Polyjuice Potion and the concealment of a house elf. Winky, the loyal house elf of the Crouch family, plays a central role in this hidden story. She was the only witness to the clandestine exchange at Azkaban. Barty Jr. was smuggled out, hidden away, kept under the Imperious Curse in his own home by the same father who had sent him to rot. But it was not compassion that motivated Crouch Sr. He sought to preserve his reputation, to control the narrative. His son was a liability, not a child. His wife now buried under the name of a Death Eater, was merely collateral in the protection of his legacy. The book details this sequence with grim clarity. He had to keep the boy hidden. He had to act as though he had lost everything. He had, but not in the way anyone knew. This secret existence could not hold. Winky, hoping to give Barty Jr. a glimpse of the outside world, took him to the Quidditch World Cup under an invisibility cloak. There he saw the chaos of the Death Eaters in the forest and could not resist the temptation to act. He stole Harry's wand and cast the dark mark into the sky. That moment should have been a signal, a warning of the deep infection still festering in the Crouch name. Instead, in the film, this entire backstory is bypassed. There is no mention of Winky, no desperate mother, no tragic prison swap. Only a quick explanation that Barty Jr. used Polyjuice Potion to impersonate Mad-Eye Moody. The complexity is stripped away, and with it, the emotional truth. Crouch Sr.'s unraveling is one of the most sorrowful arcs in the book. He is a man who sacrificed everything for public order, and in doing so destroyed his private world. His fall from grace is not loud or explosive, it is quiet, like erosion. The ministry turns away from him. His name is no longer spoken with reverence, but suspicion. He begins to deteriorate under the pressure of secrets and guilt. When he finally escapes the control of his bewitched son and tries to warn Dumbledore, it is too late. His mind is shattered, his body broken. He kept muttering, "My fault, my son, my fault." Rowling gives him a final moment of lucidity, one that the film never even attempts. In the end, Crouch Sr. dies not as a hero, nor a villain, but as a broken father who tried too late to love. The character of Barty Crouch Jr. in the book is more than just a disguised villain. He is a twisted product of neglect, power, and identity lost. Even under the guise of Alastair Moody, his obsession with Voldemort and the dark arts is clear. He teaches the unforgivable curses with a passion that disturbs every student. His control of the Triwizard Tournament is meticulous, almost fanatical. He is not simply following orders he believes are in the cause, in the supremacy of Voldemort. Yet this fanaticism is born from a life starved of direction. The film reduces him to a twitching caricature with a flickering tongue, never giving weight to the psychological layers that the book explores with such care. In one of the book's most chilling revelations, Dumbledore uses Veritaserum to extract the full truth from Crouch Jr. The confession is long, detailed, and damning. He describes his imprisonment at home, his mother's death, Winky's loyalty, and his eventual escape. It is a moment of complete emotional exposure. The truth spills out, not with malice, but with a strange sense of relief. "He was my son," Crouch Sr. had cried once. But it is only in this scene that we understand the full scope of that relationship, a bond destroyed not by betrayal, but by pride. The tragedy of the Crouch family mirrors ancient myths. A father so consumed with law that he becomes blind to love, a son so desperate for belonging that he finds it in evil. The mother, silent and dying, sacrifices herself in vain. It is Greek in its structure, modern in its relevance. Rowling gives us a warning, not just about the dangers of power, but about the dangers of neglect. The sins of the father are visited upon the son, and neither escapes unscathed. The omission of this story in the film is more than just a lost subplot. It erases one of the most human elements in the book. While the main plot moves around Harry, Voldemort, and the Triwizard Tournament, the Crouch family's tale adds texture and depth to the world. It is a reminder that evil is not always born in darkness. Sometimes it is bred in cold, bright rooms where love is absent and expectations are everything. In removing this story, the film removes the emotional consequences that ripple through the wizarding world. The emotional weight of Barty Crouch Sr.'s choices also extends to his treatment of Winky. In a pivotal moment at the Quidditch World Cup, he fires her publicly, claiming she disobeyed his orders. But Winky's failure was born from loyalty. She tried to give the boy a moment of freedom, perhaps hope. Her dismissal is not justice, it is scapegoating. In the book, Hermione's outrage reflects the reader's own. You can't blame her, she was trying to help. But Crouch could not afford to show weakness, not even toward a creature who had done nothing but serve. The emotional cost of this dismissal weighs heavily throughout the book. Winky, now jobless and disgraced, becomes a wreck. Her despair is not just about losing her place, it's about failing to protect a boy she once rocked to sleep. In her heartbreak, we glimpse the full extent of the damage done by Crouch's decisions. She is a footnote in his life, yet bears the brunt of his downfall. The film erases her entirely, removing another layer of tragedy from the narrative. In contrast, the film presents Crouch Sr. as a stern official who dies abruptly, without explanation or consequence. His relationship with his son is never shown. The audience is left with a superficial understanding of the antagonist. But in the book, this relationship is a window into the cost of repression, the complexity of justice, and the fine line between right and ruin. It is not enough to say that Crouch Jr. was evil. The book dares to ask why. Even Dumbledore, who rarely speaks of personal pain, reflects on the tragedy with gravity. He acknowledges that Bartemius Crouch Sr. was once a man of high ideals, but ideals, he warns, must never eclipse compassion. The story of the Crouches is not about dark magic or spells. It is about the darkness that grows in silence, in pride, in the absence of love. And that is the story the film chose not to tell. Number 25. Tensions with the Slytherins. When Harry Potter's name burst from the Goblet of Fire, the echo it left was not just magical, it was deeply human. The school, once a haven of camaraderie, shifted around him like tectonic plates. The very foundations of Hogwarts trembled, not from curses or dragons, but from whispered accusations and growing isolation. And in this earthquake of suspicion, it was the Slytherins who led the charge against him, casting their disdain not as friendly rivalry, but as sharp-edged malice. In the book Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, J.K. Rowling masterfully illustrates how suspicion becomes animosity, and how teenage social dynamics amplified by magic can become a crucible for character. The film adaptation offered a glimpse, even a mere flicker, of this social war. Malfoy's smirks, his insults delivered like darts, certainly remained. But the full-scale alienation Harry faced, particularly from the Slytherin students, was severely diluted. What the film missed was the extent to which the school divided, how Harry became a pariah in the very place he once considered home. It was not merely Malfoy acting out of jealousy or spite, it was an entire house, and even some of his own peers, turning their backs on him. The book gave us a slow burn that turned into an inferno. The film, only a spark. In the days following the announcement of Harry's unexpected participation in the Triwizard Tournament, Slytherins didn't just distance themselves, they mobilized. The badges they wore, proudly pinned to robes and cloaks, were cruel in their simplicity. Support Cedric Diggory, the real Hogwarts champion. Yet as Harry quickly discovered, the worst was not the message itself, but the magical twist embedded within. With a flick, the badge would change, gleaming with the words, "Potter stinks." No spell ever cast in defense against the dark arts could have stung so cleanly. The Slytherins wore these badges with glee, laughing as they flashed before Harry's eyes, a reminder that he was no longer just the boy who lived, but now the boy who lied. The brain behind this campaign was unmistakable. Draco Malfoy. His disdain for Harry had matured over the years from petty jealousy into something darker. With Crabbe and Goyle flanking him like silent gargoyles, he handed out the badges like a general distributing weapons before battle. Yet, it wasn't just the usual suspects. Pansy Parkinson paraded hers proudly, and even Slytherin students who had once barely acknowledged Harry now joined the silent rebellion, their contempt simmering in every glance. The effect was suffocating. Every corridor, every classroom, every step Harry took within the castle walls reminded him that he was a target. Rowling doesn't hold back in showing how this widespread alienation affects Harry's psyche. He was being cold-shouldered by the rest of the school, the book states, with a precision that underlines the brutality of isolation. And while students from Hufflepuff had reason to support their champion, Cedric, it was the sheer intensity of Slytherin's hatred that gave the situation its teeth. This was not mere teasing, it was social warfare. And Harry, already dealing with nightmares, dragons, and the looming threat of Voldemort, now had to navigate a battlefield made of rumours and ridicule. One of the starkest omissions in the film is the transformation of the Gryffindor common room into something of a bunker. In the book, even within his own house, Harry's circle shrinks. Ron, his best friend, doubts him. The weight of this doubt cuts deeper than any curse. The Slytherins capitalize on this divide, knowing that without Ron, Harry is vulnerable. The badges seem to shine brighter in the hallways as if feeding off Harry's isolation. And though Hermione remains loyal, her presence alone cannot shield him from the cold glares or whispered insults echoing down the castle's stone corridors. The film attempts levity in its depiction of school life during this turbulent time, focusing on the spectacle of the tournament itself. But Rowling's narrative insists on discomfort. Hogwarts ceases to be a place of wonder and becomes a mirror of the real world. A space where alliances shift, where friendships falter, and where envy breeds contempt. Nowhere is this more evident than in the behaviour of the Slytherins, who, rather than simply sneering from the sidelines, take every opportunity to publicly diminish Harry's achievements. In their eyes, he is not a champion, but a fraud, and in this judgment they find unity. Even classes become battlegrounds. In potions, Snape, already biased, leans further into his disdain, using the tension as an excuse to punish Harry more harshly than usual. The Slytherins snicker behind their cauldrons, revelling in every point lost, every humiliation endured. In Care of Magical Creatures, Malfoy loudly complains about the danger Harry presents, framing him as attention-seeking, irresponsible, even reckless. These moments, peppered throughout the book, are missing from the film. What the movie fails to capture is the emotional siege Harry endures, one where the attackers wear school robes, not Death Eater masks. What makes this hostility particularly compelling is that Rowling roots it in realism. Teenage students, even magical ones, are prone to insecurity, competition, and groupthink. The Slytherins, always on the fringe of Hogwarts society, see Harry's fame as a threat, a symbol of the Gryffindor-centric narrative they've grown to resent. When Harry becomes the fourth champion, it's not just a breach of the rules, it's a confirmation of every fear they've held, that Gryffindors cheat, that Dumbledore is biased, that fame begets privilege. The Slytherins don't need Voldemort to manipulate them into hating Harry. Their resentment is organic. This portrayal is essential in understanding the broader themes of the series. Rowling doesn't depict evil as something distant or cloaked in darkness. She shows how it can sprout from everyday prejudice, from the petty cruelties of youth, the Slytherin badges, the social ostracization, the ridicule. They are not harmless pranks. They are formative experiences for Harry, chiseling away at his innocence, forcing him to stand firm when the ground beneath him shifts. The film, in glossing over this, removes a vital stage in Harry's emotional development. It also undermines the complexity of inter-house dynamics. In the books, Slytherin is not simply evil, it is alienated. Its students, often the children of Death Eaters or pure-blood families, live in the shadow of suspicion. They lash out not because they are villains, but because they are cornered. Their hatred of Harry is a defense mechanism, a way of reasserting identity. And in the face of Harry's ever-growing fame, their contempt becomes a badge of solidarity. The book makes this tension palpable. The film, eager to move toward dragons and mermaids, brushes past it. Even the physical spaces in the castle become politicized. The Slytherin common room, always underground and separate, feels further removed than ever. Meanwhile, the Great Hall, once a place of unity, becomes a visual representation of division. House tables become front lines, students move in clusters like factions, the atmosphere is charged, and Harry at the center of it all feels the cold spotlight burning on his back. This psychological warfare, so rich in the novel, never quite makes it onto the screen. Perhaps the most painful moment, one completely absent from the film, is when Fred and George, usually a source of comic relief, choose silence over support. Their uncertainty mirrors the school's. Even the twins, who mock authority and adore mischief, don't leap to Harry's defense. That silence is deafening, and in this void the Slytherins grow louder. Their insults, once laughed off, now feel like declarations. They have taken a moral stance, warped as it may be, and in doing so forced everyone else to choose sides. By omitting these nuances, the film loses more than just character development. It loses emotional stakes. Without this chapter of isolation and resistance, Harry's eventual triumph feels less earned. The book teaches us that heroism is not just about facing dragons or surviving underwater challenges. It's about standing in a crowded room where every eye is suspicious, where friends become strangers, and still walking forward. That's the journey Rowling wanted us to see. The film showed the tournament. The book showed the price of being a champion. This price is what makes Goblet of Fire a turning point. It's not just the return of Voldemort, it's the beginning of the end of innocence. The Slytherin hatred is part of that transformation. Harry doesn't just battle magical creatures, he battles public opinion, betrayal, and loneliness. He begins to understand that being chosen, whether by fate or flame, comes with burdens no badge of honor can ease. And in that crucible, the boy who lived begins to become the man who leads. Number 26. Secret Surveillance of the Champions. In the dimly lit corridors of Hogwarts, shadows moved not only with the flicker of torches, but with purpose. In Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, J.K. Rowling layers the story with a thick fog of suspicion, casting even familiar figures in an ominous light. One of the most crucial threads mysteriously absent in the film revolves around the secretive surveillance of the Triwizard Champions. In the book, this growing atmosphere of mistrust and espionage plays a key role in transforming the school from a place of wonder into a maze of dark secrets, with Harry at the very center of it. Yet in the film adaptation, this entire subplot was drastically downplayed, and with it, a central element of suspense that defined the tone of the fourth book was lost. Professor Severus Snape, known for his cold demeanor and tightly wound self-control, takes a significant turn during this tournament. His distrust of Harry doesn't simply simmer, it boils over as he begins to believe that someone is helping the boy cheat. This belief leads Snape to keep Harry under close watch, and this suspicion is shared by another equally severe figure, Professor Igor Karkaroff, head of Durmstrang Institute and former Death Eater. In the book, they hover like twin spectres in the background, appearing in unlikely places, casting long shadows and offering Harry no peace. Snape's line, "Potter has been crossing lines for 4 years," underlines his readiness to believe the worst about Harry. Their joint suspicion creates a palpable paranoia that is utterly missing from the film's streamlined plot. The book details how Snape accuses Harry of stealing from his private stores, boomslang skin and gillyweed, among the missing ingredients. These are not minor thefts, especially in the context of a life-threatening magical competition. Snape's accusations are not just verbal, he confronts Harry, cornering him with cold, cutting words and threatening eyes. The fact that these ingredients are useful for spellwork and transformations heightens the fear that someone is manipulating the tasks from behind the scenes. Readers are made to question everything. Is it Snape himself? Is Karkaroff plotting revenge through the tournament? The very air of Hogwarts becomes heavy with uncertainty. One of the most chilling moments in the book unfolds in the library. Late at night, Harry sneaks into the restricted section under his invisibility cloak in search of spells that might help him with the tasks, but he is not alone. Strange sounds echo down the aisles. Footsteps pause and retreat. Books are found out of place. Someone else has been there before him. The notion that unseen eyes are always present, reading over shoulders, trailing behind, is deeply unsettling. Rowling describes it in a whispering tone. Harry paused, heart thudding. He thought he heard breathing between the shelves. In this moment, the line between helper and hunter begins to blur. What the book creates, and the film discards, is an invisible net slowly tightening around Harry. He isn't simply facing dragons and underwater races. He is being hunted by knowledge, cornered by adults who should be protecting him but instead suspect him of deceit. The sense of being alone in a crowd permeates every hallway he walks. Even Hermione and Ron, for a time, are emotionally distant, leaving Harry exposed not just physically but psychologically. Snape's scowls are no longer just expressions of dislike. They become part of a larger pattern of surveillance. The book also layers this tension with the strange behavior of Karkaroff, who begins to behave erratically, disappearing during meals, flinching at shadows and seeking out Snape for tense, whispered conversations. These secret meetings are seen by Harry from afar, always under suspicious circumstances. "I have felt it too," Karkaroff hisses, referring to the dark mark burning faintly again. His fear infects the atmosphere like smoke in a closed room. The film gives us only a glimpse of this dynamic, but the book lingers, pushing the reader into the uncomfortable realization that something old and evil is reawakening, and Karkaroff knows it. This backdrop of escalating dread is heightened by moments that, while small, shimmer with implication. Moody's magical eye, spinning wildly, catches more than it should. The forbidden corridors, usually quiet, now host vague silhouettes moving in haste. Peeves, the poltergeist, murmurs about visitors in the night who leave the air cold. Even the paintings seem to lean in closer, listening. The book breathes with paranoia. Yet the film focuses solely on the spectacle, the dragon chase, the underwater rescue, the maze, stripping the story of its psychological depth. A key moment that encapsulates this atmosphere comes after the Yule Ball. Harry, wandering the grounds, stumbles upon an argument between Snape and Karkaroff. Their voices are hushed but urgent, their faces set in grave tension. Karkaroff rolls up his sleeve and shows Snape something, what we understand to be the dark mark, slowly returning to life. In the book, this conversation is a crack in the wall, revealing that something ancient and terrible is bleeding through. Harry hides, listens, processes. His world becomes smaller, tighter, and infinitely more dangerous. This moment is shortened in the film and given no time to breathe, robbing it of its tension and implication. Even Dobby, the house elf, contributes to this thread. He is the one who gives Harry the gillyweed, but not without trembling fear. In the book, his delivery is urgent, his eyes wide with unsaid warnings. "Dobby must be careful," he whispers, hinting that darker forces are at play. His warning, too, adds another brick to the wall of secrecy. The gillyweed does not appear by luck. It arrives in Harry's hands through a chain of hidden watchers and silent allies. In the film, this moment is passed to Neville Longbottom for simplicity, losing the undercurrent of hidden networks working in darkness. What the film fails to grasp is that the tournament is not merely physical. It is a spiritual and psychological war waged in whispers and sidelong glances. It is not just Harry against the tasks. It is Harry against an entire architecture of deception. The school, for all its familiar corners, becomes a haunted place filled with second glances and absent professors. There is a real sense that Harry is being maneuvered like a piece on a board. Dumbledore's vague warnings, Moody's private lessons, even the Forbidden Forest all contribute to the sense that something vast and invisible is manipulating events. Rita Skeeter, too, feeds this tension. Her articles are filled with distortions and secrets twisted into weapons. She is not just a journalist, she becomes part of the larger machine of secrecy. Hermione's discovery that Skeeter is an unregistered animagus spying on students adds a whole new level of violation. Even gossip becomes a tool of control and threat. It's another reminder that eyes are everywhere, and not all of them belong to teachers. When Barty Crouch Sr. begins to behave erratically, shouting at trees disappearing from his post and eventually vanishing altogether, the reader is already primed to believe in hidden truths. Harry's account of seeing him in the woods is dismissed by the adults, but the book ensures we, the readers, don't dismiss it. It feels too real. The forest, once a place of mystery and wildness, becomes a graveyard of secrets. The tension becomes unbearable when Crouch's body is found, another sign that things are moving beneath the surface. This culminates in the final revelation of Barty Crouch Jr., disguised as Moody. This twist only lands with full weight if we've felt, as readers, the slow creep of unease throughout the book. If we've noticed the missing potions ingredients, heard the footsteps in the library, seen the hidden meetings, felt the dark mark stir. The film, without all this build-up, reduces the twist to a theatrical unmasking, but in the book it's an explosion, an answer to a question we've been too afraid to ask. By cutting the tension, the film sacrifices the genre fusion that makes the Goblet of Fire so potent. It is not just a magical adventure, it is a dark thriller, a whodunit wrapped in enchantments. The school becomes a crime scene, the teachers are suspects, the prize is survival. And at the center of it all is a boy who begins to realize that being famous will never protect him from being watched.